All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my very first ever Unreal Engine tutorial. I wanted to start with something simple. We are going to just be setting up a basic first person camera. This is a true first person camera, so you'll be able to see your body. And we're going to do a few different things. We're going to set up a walk speed. We will set up the ability to run. And we'll also add a couple of animations for crouching, an idle, and a walk animation while we are crouching. And then, of course, create the logic for um, doing all of this. So if you find any use out of this, please let me know. It would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and be sure to leave a like, especially since this is my first tutorial. I think it'll really help a lot. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I've got a completely blank project here. I am working with the third person template. So just to let you know, this is not going to be like a complete beginner's tutorial. If you've never used Unreal Engine before, you might want to take a look at some beginning tutorials just to learn how the engine works. But if you are at least familiar with how to move around and how to do a few things like that, then you should be able to follow. I'll try to do my best to walk through every little thing that I do. So the first thing that we want to do is, well, I guess we can take a look at this. So again, this is just a blank third person template that I'm using. The reason I'm starting with a third person character is because it will make it a little bit easier to set this up to where we can actually see our body and all of this. So if we hit play right now, you see that we already have some functionality built in. We can, of course, already move around. Of course, we're just running automatically. We're going to change that. And we have a jump built in. But obviously, this is in third person, and we want to change that. So what I am going to do, first thing that I like to do, I like to go in here and create a new folder under content. And I like to name this something like 01 underscore my content. And the only reason that I really do this is because I just like having a folder in here that is always at the very top. So if you name it 01, you could name it anything you want, really. But if you put a 01 like that, then it'll just always be at the top there. And our third person character that we're using is actually under here. But what I want to do just to keep this a little bit cleaner is to actually, we're going to copy that and I'm going to make a new folder here and we'll just call this characters. And so let's go here and if we open this up like this, I can just drag this over here and then do copy here. So that'll make a copy of that and put it in here for us. And then we can rename this. So maybe we call this BP first person character. Okay, so let's open that up. And now one thing that we're going to want to do is we need to change some settings here to let the game know that we're actually using this character, because right now it thinks that it's using the third person character, and it is. So the easiest way to do that is to get our first person character here. And I'm going to go to world settings. Now, if you don't have this tab open, you can get this window by going up here to window and then world settings. And it'll probably open out here, but I just like to dock mine over here just because it's easy to just keep it organized with my details panel and other stuff here. So under game mode, if we expand this right here, we can change our default character that we're going to be using. So right now you can see it's set to the third person character, but we want it to use the first person character that we're going to create here. So I've got that highlighted, and while that's highlighted, I can just click on this, and then that will change that. You can also just like drag it over there or select it from here. A bunch of different ways to do that. So now when I hit play, it doesn't look any different, of course, because this is just a copy, but now it's actually using that BP first person character. So let's go in here and let's take a look at things in here. So you can see that we have a camera here, and it is attached to a camera boom. We don't need this because this is really just more for a third person character. So we're just going to delete that. And then maybe we change the name of this to first person camera. And let's actually grab that and then just move it over to where it's highlighted like that onto the mesh. That way it'll be parented onto that. And what we actually want to do is, this is just parented onto the mesh itself. We really want to parent it to a specific socket here. And in this case, we'll go for the head. I think that'll make sense. So if we click over here, under parent socket, you can choose which socket you want to actually parent it to. And we actually have a head, so let's do that. Now, when you do that, it's going to kind of snap over here like this. But don't worry, all you have to do is just reset the location and rotation there. And then we will need to actually rotate it kind of like that. And then rotate it to where it is facing the correct orientation. Now, you could just leave it like this. If we hit play, kind of see what's going on here. So first thing you can probably tell if you're doing this is this would be nauseating. The other thing is if I move my mouse, nothing actually happens. So we're going to fix that. So there's a couple of things to fix here. First thing that we want to do is we want to click on our camera here, and we want to go under here and use or check this use pawn control rotation. Okay. And then the other thing that we want to do is if we click on our BP first person character here, and if we search for yaw, we want to use controller rotation yaw. And what that's going to allow us to do, now if we compile and save that and go in here and hit play, now you can see that when I move the camera, it's moving our character as well. And as we're moving around, all I'm doing is just moving the camera and it's going forward in the direction that I'm moving. Now, the other thing that you can see, our camera location isn't really correct here. So let's fix that. It looks like it's too far back. So there's no real right or wrong way to go about this, but obviously you don't want to be able to see the inside of your character there. So let's maybe move that forward and maybe a little bit more, maybe like 12. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. And again, you can play with these, you can play with those values. It's really just kind of a personal preference thing. Now, if you're using a mesh that actually has a head here, you may see part of the mesh, especially if there's like different parts for the eyes and mouth and that kind of stuff. So you may need to hide those. Most character meshes, they come in different parts, and you can typically hide those parts there by using like an invisible material or something like that. With the Manny, or I think this is the Quinn mesh here, you don't notice that, so it's not really an issue. But if you do have issues where you're, like seeing eyeballs or something like that, just know that you might need to actually hide that in your character. Okay, so we've got this set up now. I mean, this works pretty good, but obviously we don't really want to be running all the time. We want to have an option to run, but we don't want to just, press W and just immediately run. So what we can do for that is we can go into the character movement here, and you'll notice there are a bunch of different variables here. So one of them is walk speed, and it's set to 500 centimeters a second. That is pretty fast. Um, I am going to try and lower that to maybe like 150. And while we're at it, we haven't gotten this set up yet, but let's also change our crouch speed. So from 300, let's maybe do like 100. Okay, let's just compile and save and see how that looks. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. Again, these are all, variables that you can change. If you want your walk speed to be faster, you can, of course, set it to be faster. If you want it to be slower, you can set it to whatever you want. Now, if you do set this to be too low or too fast, you might run into some issues. If we set this to be 10, for example, okay, we're going to move very, very, very slow. And also the animation looks pretty wonky. So, I wouldn't go too low on this. Um, Probably like if you go below 100, you might run into some weird issues with animations. I think 150 feels pretty good. Let's see that again. Okay. Yeah, I think that feels pretty good. All right. So now what we want to do, we do want to be able to run. Um, well, we want to just, be able to press shift or whatever key you want to run. So the way that we're going to do that is if we go to our content drawer and if we go down here under the third person and inputs, we want to change this to, or we want to create a new action here. You can create one of these from scratch, or you can just duplicate one of these. So I'm just going to highlight jump and just press Control D, and I'm going to call this IA run. Okay, and then if we go back to input and we go into our action mappings here, we want to add a mapping here. So I'm going to click on that, and then we'll actually choose run there. And then if we drop that down, it's going to ask us what key we want to set for that. So, of course, you can set this to anything you want, but left shift is pretty normal. Run, so I'm going to set that to left shift. So let's save that. And now if we go in here, if we right click and then type in IA underscore run, you'll see our enhanced input action there. And we can drop this down, and now we have all of our functionality here. So there are a number of different ways that you can do this. There's not really a right or wrong way to go about this. But essentially what we want to do, we want to change our movement speed from what it is now, which I think was 150. And when we press shift, we want to set a new movement speed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a couple of functions to handle that for us. Let's go ahead and let's create one, and let's call it start running. And very simply here, we also let's create a variable because we need to know if our character is running or not. So let's just call this is running, and this is just a Boolean. And we want to set is running to true. But that's not the only thing that we want to do. We also need to get our character movement here. Just drag that out and then drag out from that. And we want to set max walk speed. So what this is going to do when this starts, we are going to set our walk speed to whatever we want here. Let's try 450. I think that'll be a pretty good number. You can, of course, change this to whatever you want. You could also, maybe we do this, maybe we pull out of here and promote this to a variable. And we could call this run speed. And then if we compile here, then we have that set to 450 there, but now we also have a variable that we could use later on, which it's not a bad idea to maybe just have that be a variable so we could access that later if we needed to. Okay, so that will handle our start running, but then we also need a function to stop running. So stop running. And essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing, but we want to now set this to false because we're not running anymore. And then we want to grab our character movement and set max walk speed. And then, so we're going to set this back to whatever our walk speed was, which I think I said 150. Now, again, we could drag out of here, promote this to a variable, call this walk speed, and compile, and then we could set this to 150 there. Just don't forget that if you go in here and you think like, oh, okay, I want to change my walk speed to 200, that will change your walk speed, but it will only change after this function runs. It's not going to change it when you start, because when you hit play, it is getting the walk speed that is set here. So you really need to change it here and also here as well. Another thing you could do if you wanted to, you could on begin play here, somewhere like after here, you could do something like get this and set walk speed. And then you could then set this here. And so you could do this, and then if you change this variable, then it will change all of that for you. So it's not a bad idea to do that. You don't have to do that, but it does make it a little bit easier if you want just one number to just kind of change all of that. Okay, so let's go back to this. I think that's good. So on our stop running, we're going to set that to false, and then we're going to set our max walk speed back to 150. So now if we go back to our event graph, let's go down here, and you'll notice on these enhanced inputs, there are a bunch of different things that we can choose from here. I always forget what these things are, but I think if I remember right, I think triggered will probably work for us. So what we want to do when we press shift, we want to start running. So we can grab this and we can plug that into there. And then what we want to do when I let go, which I believe is completed, then we want to stop running. So we can drag that out, plug that into there, compile, and save. And let's take a look at this now. So we are walking, and now if I hold shift, we are now running. And when I let go, then we go back to our walk speed of 150 or whatever we set there. Okay. So if you wanted to change this functionality a little bit, right now I'm holding shift, but maybe you might like to just have it toggle. That's pretty easy to do. What you can do is we can use something called the flip-flop node. And I believe on started, let's see, if we search for flip-flop, we can then unplug this, put that into A, and then put that into B. And so what that's going to do is when I press shift once, it's going to run through here and just toggle this. And then when I press it again, it's going to go here and stop running. I think if I set this up right, let's see. So we're walking and I press shift once and I'm not holding it. And we are running. And now if I press shift again, then we go back to stop. So that is totally up to you how you want to set that up. But that's a couple of different options that you can do for that. So let's just highlight this and let's call this running, just so we know where that is. And that is pretty much it for that. So the next thing is I think we should set up a crouch mechanic. That's going to be a little bit more to it, but not too hard. So first of all, there's a couple of things that we want to do. We're going to need animations for that. So if you go to the marketplace and if you search for mocap basics, there is a free asset here that you can download totally free. And they have some crouching animations in there. And then if you go down here, we can add that to our project. And then if we go here, we have animations under animations. And let's see, where is it? Mobility Pro in place. Here we go. So under mocap basics, animations, Mobility Pro, and then in place, we have these two animations here. We have a crouch idle, and then we have a crouch walk. So those are the animations that we want. The only thing is these are not set up for our skeleton that we're using. Fortunately, Unreal Engine makes this very, very simple now. I'm using Unreal Engine 5.4. They have a new retargeting method in here that is very simple to do. But if you're using an earlier version, the engine should also come with a retargeter. But all you have to do is right click on here and go to retarget animations. And it's going to bring this window up. Now, like I said, if you're using an earlier version of Unreal Engine 5, you won't have this right here. But all you have to do is for your retarget asset, you want to choose the UE4 to UE5 right here. Okay. If you're using 5.4 or newer, then it's going to do that for you, which is really nice. So it asks for a target skeletal mesh. And our target skeletal mesh is going to be, if we look right here, it's going to be SKM Quinn Simple. So I can just click on that. And that is all we have to do. Now, if we look at any of these, let's find our crouch. We want the IPC ones. And you can see a little preview. This shows you can make sure that everything looks good. It should. You can see our walk there. And that is pretty much all we need to do. So now I can highlight those two that I want. Again, make sure you get the IPC. And we want to export animations. Let's also, let's create a new folder under my content and let's call that animations. And we'll export those to that folder there. You can just leave this default here, export. And now we have our animations. So let's save all. Okay. So we are going to need a another action for that. So let's go back in here. I'll just duplicate run. We'll call this IA crouch. And then we want to go back to this. And we want to add another mapping here. And this is going to be our crouch. Now, again, you can set this to whatever you want. Um, Personally, I'm going to set it to C. I know some people, if you are a crazy person, you like to have control, but you can set it to whatever you want. You could also, you could create two different ones here. So maybe you could do control as well. So that way, if you hit C or left control, then that will fire. Maybe we'll do that. Okay, so let's go back to our first person camera now, our first person character, and let's call that. So IA crouch. And we got one of these again. Now there's a couple of other things that we want to do here. So we want to go to our first person character here and type in crouch. And there's a little check mark here that we want to actually check because we want to be able to crouch. So can crouch, that is built in there. And then again, don't forget that in your movement components, if you didn't already, you want to set your max crouch speed right there. So I got mine set to 100. Again, that's a bit of an arbitrary number. You can set that to whatever you want, but we'll try 100 and see what that looks like now. So fortunately, Unreal Engine has something built in. They have a crouch and uncrouch function already built in. If we just type crouch, and then we also have uncrouch. And so you can set this kind of similar to how you have your run. Personally, I prefer to have the I prefer to have it just toggle instead of holding it. If you wanted to hold it again, you could go into triggered and then on completed, you could uncrouch. But for me, I like to just have it toggled. So I'm going to go with the flip flop node again. And then on A, we are going to crouch. And then on B, we are going to uncrouch. So let's compile and save. So that is pretty much all that we need to do on our character here. But what we need to do now is we need to add some things to our animation blueprint. So if we click on BP first person character here, and whatever animation blueprint you're using, you want to open that up. Now, if you're following along with me and you're just using the third person character, it's going to be ABP Quinn, but that is actually, you'll see here, it's a child of ABP Manny. So we're going to open up ABP Manny because that's what we actually want to add some functionality here. And what we want to do here is a couple of things. On the event graph, again, yours might look a little different here if you're using kind of a custom animation blueprint, but this should be pretty similar for the most part. Off of event blueprint update animation, we want to add something else down here. Basically, we're setting whether we are crouching or not. And for that, we need to actually create a variable. So let's call that is crouching. And let's drag that out. If you don't know, if you just hold Alt when you drag something out like that, then it will automatically go to set like that. And we want to get our movements components, get movement component. And similar to how they have up here, there's a built-in thing, built-in function here called is crouching. And we are going to set that there. So we want to add this onto the sequence here. So let's just add a pin here. And then we're going to drag from there into sets. And I'm just going to add a reroute node just to clean this up a little bit. Okay. And then we can comment this and we'll just say set crouching here. Okay, let's compile that and save. And now we want to go to our animation graph or anim graph here. And in our locomotion state machine here, we're going to double click on that. And this is where it handles kind of our movement going from idle to walk and run. And we'll probably go over some of this stuff more in detail when we update these animations. But for right now, what we want to do is we want to add a new state here. So we right click and add state, and we want to call this crouch. And what we're going to do here is we want to create some functionality so that we tell the animation blueprint how to handle going from idle to crouching. So if you drag out of here, you have to kind of get on the edge and drag out. So then you get this little arrow, and we can plug that in there. So that's idle to crouching, but we also want to have going from crouching to idle. And then similar with the walk and the run, we want to have walking and running, we want to be able to go to crouch. And then from crouch, we also want to be able to go back to there. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is we need to define what is going on in each of these and tell it, what it needs to do when going from each of these states. So the way that we do that is if we double click this, we get this result here. This says can enter transition. So from idle to crouch, we want to just get our is crouching, get that, and we're just going to plug that in there just like that. And that is all we have to do for that. Now, if I hit compile, we have some errors here. That's just because we haven't set these other ones up. If I go back, we need to set crouching to idle. Now this one is slightly different. On this one, we want to get is crouching again, but we're going to get a not Boolean because we are not crouching now. So we're going from crouching, setting it to not, and then going back to that transition there. And then we want to do the same thing here. So walk or run to crouch. We're going to get that and plug that in there. And then here, we're going to do the same thing with the not bool and plug that in there. Okay. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually set up our state here. So if we go into crouch, this is where we're actually going to set our animations to play here. So let's get both of our animations. We want our walk animation and we want our idle animation. Now we need a way to kind of determine whether we should play which animation. And the way that we can do that, there's a node called blend poses by bool. And we can plug that in here. And so what we want to do here, there's actually a built-in variable here called should move. And so if should move is true, then we want to play our walk animation. If should move is false, then that will be our idle. Okay. We can compile and save. Now, there's a couple of other things that we want to fix here, but this should work. Let's see what this looks like. So we're standing, we're walking, we can run. If I press C, we're going to go down into our crouch. And then if I move forward, we're going to move, but you're going to notice that the animation kind of freezes like that. And the reason for that is because these animations are not looping. So this is very simple to fix. In each one of these, there's an option over here called loop animation. So we want to have both of those checked. So compile and save. Okay. Now that's playing our idle. That will continue to loop. And then as we press forward, it will play that animation. And then as we're walking, if I press C again, that will go back to our walk animation. If I'm running and I go to C to crouch, if I'm still holding shift, then we're going to go back up there. So that is pretty much it. Now, there's a couple of other things that I would change. You can probably see like the transition is really jerky here. So a couple of things that we can do to kind of smooth that out. First of all, let's change some things in these. So within each one of these, there's a duration here. And actually, if we just highlight all of these, we can change them all at once. It's set to 0.2 right now. 0.2 is not bad, but I would recommend something a little higher. Maybe like, I don't know, like 0.4, 0.5. Let's try 0.5. So that's the actual transition from when I hit C and then we go down. You can see that just looks a little bit smoother. It's not so immediate. But then we also still want to fix this. So that is also very easy to fix. If we go back in here, that's going to be this blend time here. So when we're going between these different animations, there's a blend time. So right now it's set to 0.1. That is pretty fast. So let's try a half a second on that for each one of those. Compile and save. So let's see what this looks like now. Okay. So that looks a little bit better. That may be a little too slow, but definitely better than just like that really sharp movement going directly from idle to walking. So maybe like 0.3. Again, you can just kind of play with these numbers and whatever feels good to you. There's no right or wrong way to do that. That feels pretty good. Okay. So that is pretty much it, guys. I hope that wasn't too much. But yeah, we have our walk. We, of course, have our first person camera now. We can run. Of course, I've got that set to toggled. Again, I showed you how you can set it to just be when you hold it. And then we've got our crouch and our movement set up. So yeah, I hope that is helpful. I think this is a good start for something like a good horror game or really any game that you're going to be in first person. You can customize a lot of those values to whatever works for you. You can change the movement speed if you want to have your walk faster or run faster, all of that stuff. There's a bunch of other things that we could do from this. I do have a couple of more episodes planned to set up an interaction system and create something like a door and just being able to pick up objects, things like that. If you guys have any suggestions on what you would like to see, please let me know. I am still pretty new to game development as well, so I am learning along with you guys. But I wanted to just kind of show you guys what I've learned so far and hopefully make it easy for you guys to learn yourself. So if you enjoyed this, please leave me a like, and I would really appreciate it. Also subscribe. Like I said, this is a new thing for me, and I will try to do more of these. And I look forward to helping you guys with more. All right. Take care, guys.